I do support a supplemental. I do support what the president is talking about. I want to make sure we have what we need, because in the Biden administration, they did not fund the military the way they should have. That's what happened when President Trump got into office. He moved toward that right away in terms of stockpiling things. In the Working Families Tax Cuts law, we put an additional $156 billion into military for modernization, for missile defense, for the Navy, and I expect something to come from the president to Congress. I'm going to support it. We need to make sure that our warfighters have the most up-to-date military equipment possible. The message being sent today to Russia, to China, and our adversaries around the world is this is what American peace through strength looks like.
Top lawmakers weighing the potential for a $50 billion emergency defense spending package. I have been raising this with a number of them. That, of course, was Senate leadership. Senator John Barrasso from Wyoming. This is going to boost U.S. stockpiles following these strikes on Iran. This war costing $1 billion a day. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries did not say whether Democrats would block any new funding, but says that President Trump must offer, quote, compelling rationale in order to push it through. The president met with the country's largest defense manufacturers on Friday at the White House and then said that they have agreed to quadruple their production of the exquisite class weaponry in that we want to reach as rapidly as possible. He wrote on Truth Social, the highest levels of quantity, the president writes. Joining me now is New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I want to get your take on all of this because, of course, we're waiting for the Pentagon to likely ask for, I don't know, I'm hearing it's $50 billion. I don't know what number it is. Do you? And the president is calling for a $1.5 trillion defense budget for 2027. How do you see all of this?
Look, I think what we're doing is a strategic revolution. What President Trump is saying is we want peace and prosperity around the world. We're going to use peace through strength, and we're going to take the nexus between Russia, China, and North Korea out of the way. He started with Venezuela. Instead of spending all the billions and billions of dollars we are defending ourselves against Venezuela, fighting the petrodollars that were coming out of Iran as they sold their oil to China, and Iran continued to be a disruptor, costing lives, costing the economy, causing disruption in the Middle East, preventing the people in the Middle East from being able to prosper, and allowing this, horrific regime to continue to be in place. No respect for human rights, especially no respect for women's rights. And President Trump just took bold action, and we need to defend that. We need to protect that. And in the long run, I think you're going to see the economies grow, and you're going to continue to see us reduce the debt and deficit as we have done through the Working Families Tax Cut last year. And this is part of peace through strength. I mean, unfortunately, it costs money to keep the peace and security, but we created the federal government to keep us secure. And President Trump has done that on so many levels, whether it's closing the border and keeping us safe on national defense. Look, China is dominating in the Western Hemisphere. President Trump has taken an important stand in making sure that we dominate the Western Hemisphere. And he would like to see our European and South American partners go with us. You see President Trump meeting with the South American leaders and Central American leaders just a few days ago in Doral. He's going to continue to be the leader and make sure that we give all of these countries an opportunity to get away from that nexus of evil, which is Russia, China, and using proxies through Iran.
Yeah, I mean, I keep mentioning the fact that the president has an incredible hand going into that meeting with Xi Jinping at the end of March after what he's done in Venezuela, and on top of Venezuela, Iran. Because that's our number one adversary. And, they try to bully the world with their rare earths. So I don't know that they're going to keep bullying everybody when they are actually worried about their own flow of oil at this point, given what has taken place.
Yeah, exactly right. And look at Cuba right now. How can we have a country just off of the Florida coastline in Cuba that is, provided aid and comfort and the ability of Russia and China and others to take advantage of us right on our southern shore, and this is you have the amazing Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who just continues to hit it out of the park. He's a Cuban. He understands this strategic issue, and look at what President Trump has done in South America and Central America. Interesting, we as the chair of the Election Integrity Caucus. And a member of the Intelligence Committee, we went down with Chairman Crawford and others and oversaw the election in Honduras. President Trump actually endorsed Asfura. He took out the communist regime in Honduras and won the election. What does that tell you about what people in South and Central America want? They want a chance at freedom and prosperity as well, just like the people in the Middle East who are clamoring to be part of the Abraham Accords to modernize their culture and their societies. They want to work side by side with their Israeli and Jewish and Christian partners in the Middle East. President Trump has seen through all this and has the courage to put us in a position where we can actually create this, which is in the long run going to be better for the world and better for the United States for our security and our defense.
Yeah, I mean, look, the president is trying to do a lot. You know, the Democrats don't see any of it. I mean, they blocked the Republican-backed bill to open the Department of Homeland Security. So they won't even open the Department of Homeland Security for the rest of the fiscal year. Airports got huge, hours-long delays ahead of the spring break travel. But the president is also trying to ensure that we have safe elections. The SAVE Act is critical. And the president said he's not going to sign anything else until that SAVE Act is on his desk. Congresswoman, what do you want to say about that? Do you think it'll ever see the light of day in terms of him signing something into law? Because you see what's going on in the Senate. Right? Are they going to bring it to the floor?
You know what's incredible to me, Maria? How can the Democrats actually keep the Department of Homeland Security, the 3% of government that's left, shut down? How can you do that? This whole country was founded. I was just at a wonderful little lecture last night on why our patriots founded this country. You know, and I look at what are the Democrats doing? Talking about communism, talking about undermining the rule of law. Talking about, this insanity. Why aren't we funding the Department of Homeland Security so people can travel freely, so we can have commerce, so people can go? This is a direct shot at the American people. And then to say, oh, we can't have voter ID. Let me go back to Honduras. Not only do you need voter ID, you have to prove that you actually live in the house that you claim as your official government ID. And they use biometrics to prove you're the person you say you are. Yeah. Most Americans, 95% of Republicans, over 70% of Democrats actually approve of voter ID. And they say you had to be a citizen to vote.
Yeah.
No, I know.
I mean, look, this is an 80+
stuff.
Of course it is. And this is an 80+% issue. 85% of American citizens agree that you should need a vote, an ID to vote, and you have to prove your citizenship. Is the president muddying this up by adding transgenderism and this other stuff? He tweeted the other day that he doesn't want boys and girls sports. I mean, look, people agree with all of that, but should that be in the SAVE Act?
You know, the president doesn't really need to do that. I mean, he's done that in executive order. You know, that's starting to be, I mean, that's actually another 80-20 issue. But Maria, just think about this. The SAVE issue is really important because I come from New York like you do. The Court of Appeals, far left-leaning Court of Appeals, said only citizens can vote in New York elections. Only citizens should be voting in our elections. That is just common sense. When you have the far left judges saying that that's the case, that is where we should be going. Democrats should pick another issue. This is about helping the American people.
Congresswoman, thank you. Always a pleasure to see you. Claudia Tenney joining us in New York.